Welcome in. Week 3 is in the books, at least the Sunday version of it. We got two Monday night games tomorrow, so we're not quite done. But our Sunday Huddle edition of the All NFL show is here. My name is Adam Hogue from CHGO. We got an awesome panel, and I think all three of you guys new to the show for Week 3 here as we kind of rotate through. We have an awesome lineup of people that cover the NFL around the ALLCITY family. So that's part of this show, is to kind of showcase everybody. We continue to go through all the teams' results. A 2-3 weekend technically for ALLCITY. But we'll start with introducing Fran Duffy at FDuffy NFL on Twitter, and he covers the Eagles as well as the NFL draft for us. What's up, Fran?
Adam, what's going on? A fun weekend of football, so a lot to jump into for sure.
Absolutely. We got Zach in Denver. Broncos, big win at Zach Stevens DNVR. Bo Nix just taking over and beat Baker Mayfield. Who saw that coming? Certainly not me, who definitely did bet on the Bucs, not the Broncos today.
I think everyone did, Adam, and no one thought the Broncos were going to be responsible for one of the 2 ALLCITY wins this weekend. But now Broncos country is Bo-leaving in the Broncos and Bo Nix right now. Oh, they're going to be coming left and right all night. It's all let's Bo, baby.
There we go. Yeah, there we go. I guess there we Bo. And from DLLS. New to the family, Aisha Morrison joined us as well. You can follow her on Twitter at Aisha Morrison. And unfortunately for the Cowboys, it looked like it was going to be a blowout. At least they made it close, Aisha.
Listen, there's plenty of Cowboys fans that are enraged right now. I personally just want a nap and to start over. And I am very, very, very sad to have to look at this film this week. So here we are.
We'll break it all down. We also have Bo Brack joining us from Phoenix, PHNX, as well here shortly to talk about the Cardinals. They fell to the Lions today. And our awesome producer is Emma Clark. You can follow her at Emma and Clark as well. Very cool as we continue to build this show throughout the season. And I appreciate you guys all staying up late with us as we recap a very entertaining Sunday. In fact, there are a lot of very entertaining results that have nothing to do with the teams that we cover at ALLCITY. So we'll touch on that as well at the end. But we start, as always, with our Sunday night football game. Chiefs at Falcons. I want to start with this because I'm not sure how many. I was not on this, so this is not me reacting to some bet I lost, but I've seen this go around on Twitter already. Apparently, the over-under on Patrick Mahomes' rushing yards in this game was 19.5. He had 30 rushing yards before the kneel downs at the end, and he lost 13 yards on those kneel downs, so it went back to the under. Folks, that is why you should not bet on NFL games, at least props like that, because involving a quarterback, because if you ended up on the wrong side of that one tonight, I feel for you. That's all I can say.
How far was he dropping back when he was taking the knee? I was setting up this, so I didn't even see the knees. I would have walked away from that bet thinking, I'm good. I hit the over there.
No,
yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
The first one was -5 yards, then -4, then -4.
Yeah, that's a tough one to swallow. Certainly, you go to bed feeling like you got the W, and then to come back and say you lost 13 yards on 3 kneel downs. You'd probably take the Falcons win over losing money on that way.
Yeah, it's honestly something that Pat Mahomes doing some RPO, actually them implementing some run action stuff was something that we saw in the Super Bowl that they hadn't really did mostly through the season, but they see that it's working, so they're going for it. So I guess they saw something favorable in this Atlanta matchup and took advantage of it, right?
Yeah, I got to say, I'm not a conspiracy theorist at all, but those taking a 5-yard loss on a kneel. I mean, it's all borderline suspicious there. Borderline suspicious. I mean, we're losing 5 yards, then 4, then 4. Okay. All right. Anyway, that was definitely not the story of this game. But once again, it seems like this is a theme always with the Chiefs when they're playing in prime time. You get some controversial call this time. Pretty blatant pass interference, it seemed like, on 3rd down on the Falcons' second to last drive. And then I'm not sure what happened on 4th down. Kirk Cousins kind of lost his mind there for a second and went prime time Kirk Cousins again. But probably should have had the PI on 3rd down. Then on 4th down, they can't get on the next drive, they can't get the 4th down conversion either. So back-to-back drives stall on 4th down, and the Chiefs end up getting a big win on the road against the Falcons team that, I mean, is certainly looking feisty. They're 1-2 at this point, but I mean, they got the big win last week over the Eagles. Fran, I'll start with you on this one because I know that was just a devastating blow to the Eagles. And then they come back tonight and they looked really good early on against the Chiefs. It wasn't quite as impressive in the second half, but they were certainly competitive against the Super Bowl champions.
Yeah, the injuries along the offensive line mounted up for Atlanta in this game, obviously losing a couple starters along the way. And I think that really is what tilted the favor. They finished 2 of 9 on 3rd down, Atlanta. And I think ultimately that came down to their inability to keep Kirk Cousins clean. And it wasn't just the amount of sacks, but it was more just how hurried and rushed he felt. Cousins clearly not 100% healthy coming off that Achilles injury. We saw that in week 1 with the way that they played. And even last week against the Eagles, only 1 pass attempted outside the tackle box on the run. We'll see what the numbers were from this game, but clearly still not 100% healthy. And so that defensive line, when they're able to tee off, you look at Chris Jones and Mike Dana and Charge Karlaftis and all the guys they've got. Treshaun Wharton showed up a couple times in this game tonight. So all of those guys able to get to the spot where Kirk Cousins was. If you can't protect, that's going to be problems there for Kirk Cousins. He's just not that kind of quarterback that's going to be able to create on his own. So I think that showed up more often than Atlanta fans would have liked here in this matchup.
Yeah, Zach, you have any thoughts on the game we just watched before we start diving into our all-city games?
Oh, Adam, I mean, it's week and week and week again. Where it's just the Chiefs get the favorable call. They've got a 3rd team in every single game, and it's the officials. And Broncos country is sick of it. I know the NFL is sick of it, but Broncos country is just disgusted by the officials. What more do you have to do to get a penalty flag thrown? He's holding him. He's not turning his head to look and find the ball. That's a flag right there. But then my biggest problem outside of the officials is, what are the Falcons doing not kicking a field goal with 4 minutes left? You kick the field goal there, then it's a 2-point game. And boy, at the end of the game, wouldn't they have liked to just settle for a field goal instead of have to get the touchdown there? I know they put the analytics on the screen and it says that you go for it, and that's the right call with 4 minutes left. But come on, you have to drive against that Chiefs defense. This Chiefs defense gets slept on because of Patrick Mahomes. They're one of the best defenses in the NFL, unfortunately. And if you have to ask your team to get the ball back and then drive 80, 90 yards with 1-2 minutes left in the game, that's not a recipe for success. And at the end of the game, they really wish that they would have kicked the field goal earlier. So I totally don't like that decision. And unfortunately, the Chiefs now have 3 huge wins to start the season. They take down the Bengals, the Ravens, and now the Falcons, pretty much all primetime games too.
Yeah, Zach, I'm with you. I mean, if you're at the 1 yard line, okay, try to punch it in. But we're talking about the 6 yard line. It's 4th and 5 at that spot. I saw some of the analytics get posted too, and it did say that going for it gives you a better chance to win. But I'm with you right there in that spot to kick the field goal and make it, not only because of another field goal wouldn't just tie it, it would win it too. That's part of it too for me in the math. It's not like 2 field goals just force overtime. 2 field goals equals a win. And so I would have actually gone for it there in that moment too. So I think that's a great point, Zach. Aisha, any thoughts on this game?
I'm curious to hear just y'all's language and stuff. How do y'all feel about analytics? I think they're valuable, but it's starting to feel like sometimes it overcomplicates the football within the football. So I guess want to ask you guys, what is your view on analytics and at this point? Because we look at a play like that, like you said, Zach, like, okay, kick the field goal, take the points. You put yourself in a more measurable situation. But we see in this NFL that teams really value the analytics. Are we overvaluing them right now, or what's up?
Well, I'll start on this one, and I'll go to you guys. Zach, you can go next. I mean, I think that it's valuable information, but in football games, this is a sport that, like, to me, way more than baseball, which is a sport I grew up playing the most, is way more based on grit and heart. That in the moment, you also have to have the balls to just go off of your gut and what you're feeling in the moment. And so maybe in that moment, you know, Raheem Morris is feeling, I trust Kirk Cousins and he's gonna make a play here and we're gonna score a touchdown. Maybe that's it. And if that's the case, I'll honestly respect that answer from him post game. But I like the analytics as a tool to kind of help you, you know, judge option A versus option B. But it shouldn't just be, yeah, we're always gonna go with the numbers no matter what.
Totally. I completely agree with both of you there. And the analytics doesn't take into account that the drive had really stalled in those previous 2 plays right before 4th down. It doesn't take into account that it just seemed like the Chiefs had kind of figured out the red zone in that moment. And it doesn't take into account that just everything about how the game was going at that point, that the Chiefs are one of the best defenses in the NFL over the past 2 or 3 years as well. So for you to ask then, if you don't get that 4th down, for Kirk Cousins to have to go find the end zone again with 2 minutes left in the game, it doesn't take all of that into account. So I totally agree with what both of you said, that you do take analytics into account and that every team should have an analytics guy in the coach's ear during games, but it should not drive every single decision.
Yeah, I'm probably on the opposite side from you guys, and it might be because I've been close to a team that won their first Super Bowl, being very analytically forward, and just the way that they've built this franchise. Not every single decision that they make on an everyday basis is based on the numbers, but it certainly drives a lot of the thought process. And I think when you look at the way that analytics can help you from the game day decision making standpoint, Aisha, you said at the top, it's almost like you want to overcomplicate football. The idea behind it is that this should make it less complicated. Hey, let the numbers make the call for you. But obviously there's a time and place for everything in terms of understanding what your limitations are from a personnel standpoint. So if some of those injuries that had piled up for Atlanta in this game, if that proved to be too much from a pass protection standpoint, then maybe, that might tilt you more towards trying to take the points there in that situation. But I am, me personally, I'm more aggressive than not. So I'll say, whenever you're given the chance, go for it. That will come to bite you. You're not going to bat 1,000 there, but I do think that it's better to be aggressive than not, more often than not.
You cover Philly, yeah?
Yes.
Figures. Okay.
Yeah. Listen, they got that Super Bowl going for it on 4th down with the running back throwing it to the backup quarterback. So to me, the risks are worth the reward at times.
I reserve my comments.
Yeah. All right. Well, he does cover Philly, and the Eagles did win today. So just putting a bow on the Sunday night game. The Chiefs somehow find a way to do it. Always. Here they are. They don't even look that impressive to me so far this season. They're 3-0. They managed to do it. They're 3-0, and the Falcons, who honestly have maybe looked a little bit better than I even thought, because I was wondering if they might actually be frauds here and a little hyped up too much, perhaps like the team I cover. They're 1-2. So that's what it looked like tonight on Sunday night. We move on and try to keep things rolling here, and we will go. I liked RK was hosting last week because the Bears were on Sunday Night Football, and I liked how he did this. He said, winners go first. So hopefully we don't have an 0-5 all-city weekend at any point in the season, but this was not that. The Eagles do pull out a win over the Saints today, Fran, 15-12. This was a low-scoring game for a long time, and then it was like, okay, that money you spend on a running back, which I don't know, I feel like doesn't jive with the analytics crowd to spend money on a running back. But today it sure resulted in a win for the Eagles.
Yeah, no question. And Saquon Barkley, a huge reason why the Eagles were able to come up with that win. And I think ultimately when you look at this game, a really important win for Nick Sirianni, for this entire coaching staff, for this roster. You did not want things to tailspin going into a red hot New Orleans Saints house. And that offense was humming in both the pass game and the run game. And, Adam, the impact that Vic Fangio can have on a defense. This has Vic Fangio's fingerprints all over it with what they were able to do against that Saints offense today. They were mixing up their fronts. They were mixing up their coverages. They kept Derek Carr on his toes from what they were trying to present both pre and post snap. And then the front seven just came to play when it came to trying to stop the run. Aisha saw firsthand what this rushing attack can do. They scored 6 touchdowns to start the game against the Cowboys a week ago. Alvin Kamara was held to under 3.5 yards per carry, no touchdowns in the first half of this game. They only had 3 points on the board going into the fourth quarter, and a big part of that was all the things that they were trying to do. Well, again, from mixing up their fronts and then mixing up their coverages. Offensively, they did some really good things. Jalen Hurts, I think he put 2 balls hit the ground in the second half. But the big thing that just bit this team too often than not, you had 2 turnovers in the first half. You had a blocked punt. You had 2 turnovers on downs. And so too often this team just made those critical errors where some of those drives result in points. And now all of a sudden it's not 3-0 in the fourth quarter. You're talking about a 21-3 ball game, something along those lines. And so this game should have been a lot more decisive than it was, but still a very important win for this team.
Yeah, to your point, Fran, I mean, only 12 first downs for a New Orleans team that certainly put it on the Cowboys last week. And no surprise to me. I'm sure even Zach, you covered Vic in Denver. He maybe not the greatest head coach of all time from your guys' perspective, but the defenses were always there. And I know, always thinking about it from looking at it from afar and knowing Vic from Chicago and all the great things he did here, it always felt like to me, if he had had a quarterback during his times as a head coach there, that things would have been much better. Now here he finds himself in Philly, and I'm certainly not surprised, Zach, that the Eagles defense is looking pretty good, and certainly did today against a Saints team that had looked really impressive early on in the season.
Yeah, we just need to get Vic out to Dallas so he can round out this trio there, this panel that we've got here. But I mean, Vic Fangio, that's what people are known for, right? I mean, we have analysts coming out and saying that the too high safety should be banned in the NFL because of what it's doing to the NFL game right now, and that is credit to Vic Fangio. This is his defense. He keeps everything in front of him and just makes you dink and dunk your way down the field. And we kind of saw today that, man, the Saints might be frauds. Their 2-0 start might not be who they truly are, even though it's been a great start. And of course, they put it on Dallas last week. But Vic said, yeah, Derek Carr, you're going to have to beat us by dinking and dunking, and to the tune of 12 points. That is not how it gets done.
Yeah, man. I wanted to comment on the Philly defense. One thing that I noticed as well, because obviously I watch y'all pretty closely. So the DT play, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that Jalen Carter and Davis maybe played one of the better games in tandem than I've seen them play since they came into the league. I mean, just getting a lot of penetration up the middle, and they were just very sound in shedding and tackling a little bit more than I'd seen them to that point. And with the Eagles secondary, to your point, I think some of the disguises and some of the more zone stuff and not just having these guys sit up and play men the whole time is kind of helping out those guys on the back end as well. I mean, it's your team, but I'm just that's just my observation. I'm actually happy to see these DTs playing better, because I felt like last year they tapered down because of the depth, but this year it feels like they have a little bit more of an understanding of the position with Fangio.
Nope. Yeah, I mean, no question. Jalen Carter was outstanding in this football game, and he was constantly in Derek Carr's face. I think he got credited with 4 hurries from like the official stat sheet. My guess is that Next Gen Stats and Pro Football Focus, that number might get close to double digits, because he was in Carr's face from the jump. A couple of tackles for loss in the game. Didn't get credited with a sack, but again, just constantly harassing the quarterback. Jordan Davis did end up with a sack. The big thing that you wanted to see from Jordan Davis in this game was, could he show that consistency against the run? It was the first time he had a full sack in about a year, but last week against the Falcons played entirely from an 11 personnel set with 3 receivers on the field. And so the Eagles responded in kind and played a nickel. That kind of made Jordan Davis not as big of a factor in the game, but with the Saints playing with as much heavy personnel as they like to, that meant that the Eagles' base defense was on the field, and Jordan Davis did a really nice job throughout the majority of this football game. Like I said, under 3.5 yards a carry for Alvin Kamara. That's a win for the Eagles defense. And those D tackles in the middle, you throw Milton Williams in, number 97 as well, or number 98 as well. All 3 of those guys did an excellent job on the interior for this Eagles front.
Yeah, seeing Bond and Nakobe Dean kind of seem like
Yep.
they're starting to get some chemistry playing the run. I think those guys play downhill and play very physical. But to y'all's point, I mean, yeah, they routed the Cowboys because the Cowboys don't have DTs that can do what your DTs do: hold up double teams, actually warrant double teams, so your linebackers aren't getting their asses whooped. So I hope I can say ass on here. But yeah, shout out to y'all. I hate to say it, but it was nice to see from you guys.
So I'll probably go to a place that Bears fans don't want me to go to, but going back to last year's draft, Jalen Carter was number 1 on my board, and I wouldn't shut up about him. And all that off the field stuff, I frankly just didn't really care about it when it came down to the fact that the Bears had the number 9 overall pick. Number 1 overall, taking that risk, okay, I'll listen a little bit. But when it came down to number 9 and still being on the board there, I was all in on the Bears taking him. Now they move back 1 spot. They make the trade with the Eagles, Fran, and they end up taking Darnell Wright, who to this point at right tackle has been fine. But I always like to give offensive tackles at least into their 3rd year to really decide what they are. It takes time. I get it. He has not been horrible by any means, but he also has not been a dominant offensive tackle that you're hoping you're getting in the top 10. Now, I know Jalen Carter's season last year started off great. Second half, he kind of disappeared. Now he looks good again. Give us the vibe on what the Jalen Carter situation is in Philly right now, and how optimistic you guys are that they hit a home run with this pick, and try not to make Bears fans feel too bad about it.
Well, I can't make any promises there on the second part of that, Adam, but I think when you look at Jalen Carter, just from a pure talent standpoint, he's everything you would have wanted if you were the Philadelphia Eagles. You trade up and you take him at number 9, and this is a guy that has game-wrecking ability every single time he steps on the field, and it's not just rushing the passer, it's defending the run as well. His quick first step, his anchor, his power to displace blockers and make plays in the backfield. He is consistently disruptive in both phases of the game. He's got a high motor as well. He's making plays outside the tackle box. The big thing that you just want to see from him is the consistency. Now, he was a part-time player last year. Obviously, you had Fletcher Cox in the building. You still had some vets ahead of him. So he was not necessarily asked to be thrust right into the starting lineup a year ago as a rookie. But with Fletcher Cox gone, now that's kind of his job, and all eyes are on number 98. He's got the talent to be a defensive player of the year type of talent at the defensive tackle spot. You look at Chris Jones and Aaron Donald. He has that type of ceiling in him. But now he's just got to be able to reach that. Now, we know that defensive tackles typically take a little bit of time to get going. They don't usually hit that ceiling until year 3, year 4. And so really what you're hoping to see is continued flashes from Jalen Carter. Certainly this was a big step in the right direction. You saw a lot last year. Aisha, you made the point earlier that he kind of tapered off as the second half went. Adam, you said the same thing. I think when you look at what Jalen Carter can be, you're hoping he can build off of last year. I went back and watched every single snap of his career this offseason from his rookie season, and I thought that he did some really nice things in the second half. It's just that whole defense really just went down the tubes, and so everything around him, that ecosystem, just was not fruitful for anybody that was going to try and produce. But I think when you look at Carter, the talent is absolutely there. He was a game wrecker every single time he went out there in training camp this week or this summer. Every single time you go out there for practice, there would be a player who'd be like, how did 98 get into the backfield as fast as he did? And you wish you could kind of get the rewind button and watch what you're doing, but you're on the sideline at practice, so you couldn't go and exactly see what he did. But this is a guy, again, that can win in so many different ways. Now it's just about putting it all together and being that model of consistency on the interior.
Yeah, well, all right. That didn't make us feel that great, but it was a good breakdown. It was an awesome breakdown. We understand it. So, anybody else have any final thoughts here on this Eagles win? They moved to 2-1, and I'll say it's not easy to go down to the Superdome and win, and you do that against a Saints offense that had been humming too. So defensively coming through the way that they did, I think this is a good Eagles win, even if it wasn't the prettiest football game that maybe was played on Sunday.
And I mean, obviously, the Eagles know this better than anyone else, but their one Saquon Barkley easy catch that hit him in the hands for being 3-0. So, I mean, they're really picking up from where they'd left off midway through last year and really bouncing back, which I'm sure Eagles country is very relieved of.
Yeah. And I think we can all agree that Nick Sirianni Nick Sirianni needed this one today after what went down on Monday night against the Falcons. All right, we'll keep it in the winner's circle and keep things moving. Zach, we go to you on this very impressive 26-7 win. Another situation where you have an NFC South team that offensively had looked very impressive coming into today and basically got completely shut down. And the Broncos with Bo Nix throwing 36 times. What was going on in Tampa?
That's something that Sean Payton has liked to do in Bo Nix's early career, is just put the ball in his hands, and they did that to a crazy extent today. And really, I know Ryan last week on this show said the Broncos need to simplify the offense, and they absolutely had to. But what's interesting is simplifying the offense meant giving more control to Bo Nix, giving more on Bo Nix's plate than he's had in the NFL. And you think that that's kind of counterintuitive to how you would treat a rookie. Typically, you want to take things off his plate. Well, last week there was a report that after the game, the Steelers cornerbacks were laughing at the Broncos, Sean Payton and Bo Nix, because they knew exactly what was going to happen in the game. And they called it, and they held the Broncos to 6 points, which is their worst offensive output since the game that they didn't have a quarterback in COVID when their quarterbacks were all disqualified. That's how bad last week was. So then to bounce back this week against a Bucs defense that was top 5 in the NFL entering this week, giving up only 18 points per game, and put it on them was huge. And the way they did that was just throwing the ball and being aggressive to start, because the Steelers cornerbacks were laughing last week after the game because they knew that Bo Nix wasn't going to throw the ball more than 5 yards down the field. So how did the Broncos open up the game? They get the ball, they win the coin toss. Instead of deferring, they receive so that they can put the ball in Bo Nix's hand. In the very first play of the game, Bo Nix hits a 22-yard pass, and the Broncos are immediately in Buccaneers territory, something that did not happen last week in the first half. The Broncos rarely made it into Steelers territory. In the first play of the game, they are in Bucs territory. And then what do? The very next play, they go deep again. And Bo Nix has 2 more completions, which puts the Broncos in the red zone right away. On the very first drive, the Broncos got a touchdown, but Bo Nix had 70 passing yards on the first drive. The Broncos had 62 total yards of offense in the first half last week. So just talk about a complete flip or script that was flipped on its head, and it was all courtesy of Bo Nix. Bo Nix had completions to 9 different players, and in the first half, actually all the way through the first 3 quarters of the game, Bo Nix was also the Broncos' leading rusher. I mean, you talk about putting so much on a rookie's plate and him stepping up and hitting it out of the park. That's exactly what Bo Nix did today, and we all thought it was going to be the opposite. We all thought, man, if the Broncos want to win, they have to have a good run game surrounding Bo. And they just simply did not have a good run game until the fourth quarter, where their third string running back stepped up and took over the game. He had 63 rushing yards of his 70 yards in the fourth quarter, including a 43-yard run. His name is Tyler Beatty, but a very interesting note about his name here. So he is on video last year saying his last name is pronounced Beatty. It's Badie. Well, the commentators kept calling him Bidet on the program today, and everyone's like, "What are they talking about? What Bidet? That's not his name." He changed the pronunciation of his name last week to Bidet. So yes, Tyler Bidet took over for the Broncos and really helped Bo Nix, because outside of that, this was all on Bo Nix, and it was very, very promising for the Broncos.
That reminds me of Monty Ball, who also played for the Broncos and was at Wisconsin, which is my alma mater. You might see the helmet in the background, because he was Monty Ball like his entire Wisconsin career. And then all of a sudden, I think it was his senior year, he's like, no, actually, my name's Monte Ball. You guys are pronouncing it wrong this entire time. And I'm like, well, why didn't you tell us? What did he go by when he was in Denver?
Monte Ball.
So he did go full Monte. But I mean, in Wisconsin, we called him Monty for 3 years. And then he had like 38 touchdowns, I think, his junior year, whatever year it was. And it was like Monty. And then all of a sudden, no, I'm Monte. And so, okay.
And we have Tyler Beatty or Bidet on record. Literally, there's a video of him from last year saying, "Oh yeah, my name's pronounced Beatty," because some people were calling him Batty, and he was like, "No, it's Beatty." Well, no, now he changed it to Bidet, which is very interesting. Some people in Europe really love bidets, and clearly, I mean, maybe he does as well. So changed his name to that. But I mean, he's on the practice squad for the Broncos. They just elevated him to the game day elevation for this week, and he's a guy that is clearly the Broncos' best running back now on the team, at least the hot hand now. He should be their Broncos starting running back because Javonte Williams and Jaleel McLaughlin, their top 2 running backs supposedly on the depth chart, they averaged 2.4 yards per carry today and 1.4 yards per carry today. They're not averaging more than 2 yards per carry from their top 2 guys this entire season. And then you have Tyler come in and he goes for 7.8 yards per carry and gives Bo that help. The Broncos do end up with 136 rushing yards on the day, but like I said, until midway through the fourth quarter, Bo Nix was the leading rusher again. And if Bo Nix would have held on to being the Broncos' leading rusher this game, if it wasn't for Tyler breaking out for a 43-yard run, Bo Nix would have become the first quarterback to ever lead his team in rushing in the first 3 games of his career. And while that's impressive for Bo, that just shows how much they're lacking in the running game. So it was huge to have Bo or to have someone else step up there. And then this Broncos defense just absolutely suffocated the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And we need to give Pat Surtain all of his flowers because this is a 3rd straight game that he has gone up against an elite receiver and shut him down. Mike Evans, who entering today had 100 yards on the season, he catches 2 passes for 17 yards, and only one of them was on Pat Surtain. Pat Surtain gave up 8 receiving yards to Mike Evans today. And then on the flip side, you had Chris Godwin, who's been an absolute beast this season, averaging 100 yards per game. The Broncos shut him down as well, only allowing him to get 53 receiving yards. This Broncos defense was also all over Baker Mayfield. Bo Nix didn't get sacked once. Baker Mayfield got sacked 7 times in this game. The Broncos had as many sacks as the Bucs had points.
Tater tots.
That, by the way, that's the second time I've heard you say tater tots today because I tuned into the beginning of the Cowboys post-game show, and I believe that's how you guys started that show.
It's my curse word, so I don't curse.
I like it. That's okay. That's better
Trying
than
to keep the lights on.
Yeah. So I will say, surprising result. Obviously, I'm not sure the Broncos or the Bucs are necessarily winning the Super Bowl this year. Maybe a little bit of pause I have in the fact that I know, Zach, that the Broncos did not score a touchdown after the first quarter in this game. There were a lot of field goals the rest of the way, but still a step in the right direction, I think, for Bo Nix after the first couple of weeks. Fran, any thoughts on this game that happened in Tampa today, which was one of the more surprising results of the day, if not the most surprising one, although the Vikings and Texans might, be in play for that one as well?
I'm going to be honest. It's a roller coaster of emotions for me because coming into the season, I had my doubts on Tampa Bay kind of repeating in the NFC South. You lose your offensive coordinator. You get a little bit older in some spots. They had some defensive turnover. What would this team look like? Well, they made me look silly the first couple of weeks, but now I'm sitting here like they are who we thought they were, watching this Broncos team go into Tampa and get this W. And so the Eagles play the Bucs next week. I've been watching the Bucs over the last few days, watching them on both sides of the football. Zach, I'm kind of interested defensively. You talked about Surtain, but what did they do to kind of shut down Baker Mayfield in that offense? I'm going to go through the film probably tomorrow night at this time. So after I go through all the Eagles tape, what was it that they did to try and kind of limit Baker Mayfield and his effectiveness overall in this game?
Yeah, I mean, it was really all credit to the secondary of the Broncos because a lot of the sacks, a majority of the sacks were coverage sacks where Baker just had nowhere to go with the ball. And then he started panicking. And you could see there were a couple of times where he ran into some sacks just because the coverage was so good. After the game, Sean Payton said the key to this game was essentially going to be those sacks. He knows that Todd Bowles likes to pressure the quarterback, likes to send a lot of blitzes. And Sean said we were going to do everything to make sure that they did not get after Bo Nix. We were going to have a plan for all of the blitz and packages that they were going to send in. We weren't going to let them beat us that way. And then when it came to the secondary, we had to shut down Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and that's exactly what they did. Baker was rattled. This was Brown's Baker, where there was maybe one or two good plays, but for the most part, he was a very average quarterback. Now, after the game, Baker said, and I won't use the exact words because I don't think those are allowed on these airways, but essentially he said, we overlooked the Broncos, and when you do that, you're going to get beat, and we got our butts handed to us today by the Broncos. So I think they really overlooked the Broncos. And Fran, I can't imagine that the Bucs, especially coming off a loss like this, a pretty embarrassing loss, that they're going to overlook the 2-1 could be 3-0 Eagles.
Agree with you there. It's gonna be a fun one, a rematch from the playoffs last year.
They got their tater tots handed to them.
Well, yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. By the way, shout out to the tater tots at Joe's on Weed Street in Chicago today. We had a great remote broadcast, and those were outstanding. All right, so the Broncos do get this win today. They go to 1-2. Bucs fall to 2-1, but a very convincing win for the Broncos on the road. Certainly one I did not see coming. Now, one of the more marquee matchups of the weekend, I would say. Ravens going to Dallas, playing the Cowboys, and Aisha, I know you guys knew coming into this one, like the Ravens had to have this game. They started 0-2. Certainly the backs were against the wall going into Dallas against this Cowboys team that you thought would have fought back a little bit more after what happened last week against the Saints. And then pretty much for most of the afternoon, this looked like it was headed towards a blowout, and it really was a blowout until the Cowboys finally got things going in the fourth quarter, recovered an onside kick, made it interesting, almost had a chance to win. But you take us through it and what you guys witnessed and experienced today.
Oh man. So yeah, like you mentioned, coming to this game, we talk about how many changes are going on in the NFL right now. The Ravens, they came in, they have a new OC, they have a new DC, they're experiencing some changes, got some new guys on the offensive line. So you've seen them in games kind of still trying to sort things out as well. And if you look at the games that they've lost, they've been right there, dude. It's just been like one little mistake, one little thing here, whatever. But they've given up these leads late in the game, whether that be with mental focus or whatever. But man, like, no, the Raiders just came in, and the Ravens just came in and they had a plan. I mean, they clearly saw some of the things that that the Saints had success with, running the ball, attacking the edges, and things like that, stretching this Dallas defense. And they were able to get after it early with the RPO. I mean, you literally saw the Cowboys defenders, specifically the edges, just visibly frustrated with how difficult it is to play a Lamar Jackson and how much you have to prepare for him and how shifty he can be. But as far as Dallas, I mean, what we're seeing from them, I know the people who cover them, this is nothing surprising to us. They didn't take seriously the running back position in the offseason. They didn't take seriously getting DTs in the offseason and being able to fill those gaps. And you're really just seeing a trickle-down effect through the whole defense specifically. They gave up 275 yards on the ground today, 3 TDs. I mean, it's just kind of a whirlwind of craziness right now. And you're seeing guys overcompensate, not play their position, not jumping out of gaps, bad angles, bad tackling and everything. And it just seems like they're playing very uninspired football at this point. From the offensive side of things, you do have 2 rookies on that offensive line, but really where this offense is struggling is in the run game, specifically not being able to get anything going. I mean, the Cowboys running backs kind of leave a lot to be desired as far as being able to be explosive in the open field and make something out of nothing. And with this run blocking scheme and how they're doing things, they're not getting enough positive yardage there. And when you talk about the receiving side of things, yeah, they want to do some plays downfield. They want to do some things to get these teams out of shell and stuff, but you don't have a deep threat that you're threatening right now. And also, too, I mean, your tackles, Terrence Steele and Tyler Guyton have really struggled this last couple of games, and it's really speeding up the quarterback. So we're in a weird place right now, brethren. Listen, I'm not even gonna hold y'all right now because the thing about DT specifically is it's almost too late to fix it because nobody's gonna ransom a DT to you. DT is almost a luxury at this point in the NFL. And I'm talking about the nose tackle. I'm not talking about 3 techs because everybody got one of them now. We're talking about like straight up. I can stay in and I'm going to draw double teams. The Cowboys DTs are not even drawing double teams right now. So everyone's playing straight up. These linebackers are having to do so much, and it's just a bad look, fellas. Like, I'm telling you, right, I don't have a whole bunch nice to say. Got to get in this film and grind it out. And then we saw CeeDee Lamb today, visibly upset, frustrated about what was going on. He didn't have a great game. I mean, I don't know, dude. Like, Dallas has a lot to fix in a little bit of time, but what's the most frustrating about it is that these are all things that we talked about needed to be addressed in the offseason. And per Jerry today, it's fine. We don't have a personnel problem. Everything's cool. Everything's fine. And it is disappointing because Mike Zimmer coming in, you would think, Dallas has had issues with discipline and, guys playing hero ball and stuff like that, not being able to stop the run. So Zimmer coming in, we thought that we were going to get a little bit more of that standard that was set and stuff like that, but we're not seeing that right now. Quite honestly, these guys look far worse than what they did last year, and I don't see it getting any better given the personnel that they have currently. So pray if you care.
Pray. Well, Fran might care. This is your division, man. What are your thoughts on the Cowboys through 3 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that they were going to have trouble against this Ravens team just because of the Ravens being back against the wall. They're 0-2. They did not want to fall to 0-3. And I know that they had problems along the offensive line, but this is a team that historically wants to go in and play bully ball. And after watching what the Saints did to Dallas in that front last week, I thought that Baltimore would come in and try and own the line of scrimmage. Aisha talked about the issues that Dallas is having on the interior and at the second level. This is something that went back to last year as a part of their demise in the playoffs and down the stretch, and this is something that was not addressed by this front office and by this team going in through the entire offseason. And so it was not a shock to me to see Baltimore jump out to that early lead. We were doing the post-game show here with PHLY Eagles, and we're just keeping an eye on it. It's like, all right, 7-0, 14-3, 21-3. And it was just like, yeah, like this is exactly how I anticipated this to go. So not a shock. Everything that Aisha is saying, it's everything that I was not surprised to see over the course of this football game.
Yeah, and Dallas is not a team that is in a position to be able to play from behind right now. They don't got it, and that's why they took the ball to start. And I mean, the untimely penalties and in the red zone and stuff like that. You might not have turned the ball over, but these are drive killers. That you're having come up in these key moments. Anytime they would gain some momentum, it would be a penalty. And again, you guys talked about the Fangio defense. Listen, that's what most defenses are daring you to do now. That's why we got people talking about don't do too high shell, don't no more of that, because it does take the excitement out of football because it's guaranteeing that you are going to be methodical, going down the field, eating the clock, and they're just betting on you to make a mistake. And guess who's going to make one? The Cowboys. It's them. That they're going to make a mistake in the worst time. So, I mean, you're just not getting, like I said, the run is not helping at all. The quarterback is having to do a lot. I mean, quite honestly, the Ravens were 26 coming in this game against play action. We know that secondary can be good, but they have struggled also in this new scheme. And Dallas didn't take advantage of that at all. But you can't because nobody gives a nothing about your run game at this point. So I think they're averaging like 3.2 yards a carry on the ground across the board. It's just not enough. And so it's just Dak to the rescue, and that's kind of what you saw later in that game. That's the only reason why they had a chance in that game, because Dak Prescott kind of was like, you know what? All right, let's go.
Yeah, thank you to Dak for finally putting some fantasy points on the board once I moved him to my bench this week, and he piled up the stats in the fourth quarter. Very nice of him. Speaking of that, and we can do a little transition to the Bears game here because, Aisha, do you know which quarterback has the most passing yards in an NFL game this season so far?
So far?
Yeah, this season through 3 weeks, who has the most passing yards in one game?
In one game? I feel like I just saw that somebody passed for a whole bunch today. Dang it.
Well, it was Dak Prescott with 379 today. But what you might have seen before Dak eclipsed him is this is probably the stat you saw. Because before Dak got to 379 today, the quarterback that had the most passing yards in the NFL in a single game this season was Caleb Williams. Today, it's 363. So, he held the mark for like an hour and a half. That was cool. The Bears will probably put up a banner for that in their building because that never happens. But we kind of moved this conversation from the Cowboys to the Bears, who also lost today 21-16. 52 passing attempts for Caleb Williams today. They had 49 plays in the first half and had 0 points. 49 plays and 0 points, which is only a thing possible by the Chicago Bears. They're the only NFL team in the history of the league that could ever pull that type of feat off, but that's what they do. And it all came down. I'm also going to play a game with you guys here. Just curious, football strategy wise, if you have a 4th and goal situation at the 1 yard line, are you, Fran, I'll start with you. Are you pro shotgun or anti shotgun 4th and goal at the 1 yard line?
I would say I'm mostly anti-shotgun. There's a time and place there. You might have the right play call for it, but I would say I'd more often than not, I'd want the guy under center.
Yes.
Zach?
Fran doesn't even understand the situation because you just do the tush push in Philadelphia, so there's like no question about that one. But I'm with Fran. I mean, I'm going under center here. It's just going to help your running game, and isn't that what you're probably going to do on that play?
Yeah,
you would think so, Aisha?
Shortage. We are at an under center shortage in the NFL. So,
yeah,
for the love of God, at least get him pistol. Jesus.
Oh, don't say that because that's what the Bears did. They got in pistol on. So instead of having the ball 1 yard from the line of scrimmage, we now have the ball about 8 yards from the goal line, I should say. Now we've moved the ball back to 8 yards, and then on top of that, we're running pistol option with a quarterback that did not run the option in college. We are now pulling out playbooks from Pac-12 after dark. Like literally, I don't know what we're doing here. It made absolutely no sense right before halftime. It was one of the worst play calls I've ever seen. In fact, I put on Twitter when this happened earlier today, in 14 years of covering the Chicago Bears, I think this is the worst play call I have witnessed. We've seen a lot of bad play calls in that time. We're now, 8 hours removed from me tweeting that, and I actually feel stronger about that actually was the case. It was that bad. The Bears lost 12 yards. So even in a situation where you're going, the worst case scenario here is, well, they're pinned at their own 1 yard line, and maybe we can get a safety. No, the Bears actually moved the ball back out to the 13 for their opponent in that situation today. It was just that type of day in Indianapolis. The Bears finally finding a way to move the football today. Caleb Williams seemed like took some strides. Rome Odunze had a nice day, 6 catches, 112 yards, and a touchdown. That's the type of production that you're hoping to start to see from Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze, but still it didn't result in enough points. Way too many missed opportunities today. And in a weird way, even on a day where it feels like, okay, this hype seems somewhat justified. Caleb took a step forward. Rome Odunze took a step forward. Yet the Bears are in the same exact place they always are. Defense, relying on the defense. Offensive coordinator, the plan, the play calling, it's all very, very confusing. But I don't even know how this is all possible, but this is what the Bears do. They find a way to not score points, even when they move the football, and that was certainly the case today. I don't know how much you guys saw of this game, but I am curious from the the more national perspective of what you might have seen from this game in Indy today as the Colts won 21-16.
For me, I would say that the most disappointing thing is just not being able to win in the trenches. Looking at what Indianapolis struggled to do over the first couple of weeks of the season, especially defensively. I know Latu was banged up and ended up playing in this game, but they didn't have DeForest Buckner to be as outmanned as they were up front. I know this is a Chicago Bears O-line that we weren't expecting to be a top 5, top 7, top 8 unit in football, but at least to be an above average unit that could keep Caleb Williams upright. And that has been a struggle throughout most of the season. We all saw that in prime time last week, but on the short week, after kind of a gut check moment a week ago, I was a little disappointed that we weren't able to see that line of scrimmage be won on that side of the football.
Adam, I have a bigger picture question for you because I hear everything you're saying and I get frustration and anger. And I totally understand that. I mean, your rookie quarterback almost throws for 400 yards and you only put up 16 points. That's unacceptable. The play calling seems very frustrating. But you and I and the Broncos and Bears are in a similar situation right now where, of course, everything's about Caleb Williams and Bo Nix. And maybe the expectations for the two teams going into the season were different enough. But if Bo Nix would have gone out, let's say today, and throw for 363 yards, obviously 52 dropbacks is way too many, but also throw a touchdown pass and then throw 2 touchdown passes. And now Caleb's the only rookie quarterback that has thrown a touchdown pass right now in the NFL because Bo Nix didn't throw one today. But if he would have gone out and had that day, yes, it would have been a bummer that the Broncos didn't get the win. But I think Broncos country would be like, man, at least Bo looked great. And honestly, that would kind of be a moral victory. Now, there are no moral victories. I get that. But this whole season for the Broncos is about developing Bo Nix. And as long as he looks like the guy, then it's a successful season regardless of the record. The next year, the record kind of kicks in. Is that not the case with the Bears and Caleb? Is it more about just winning and getting the wins this year than necessarily just looking at Caleb and seeing he's a success?
No, it's a good point, Zach. And I will say this is why we always start our CHGO Bears postgame shows with an instant reaction from myself. And that's actually where I went. I mean, despite how frustrating this game was, it was a very positive thing to see Caleb and Rome Odunze, because this is another thing. The Bears are sort of in this luxurious situation where they had 2 top 9 picks, and in almost any other franchise around the league right now, similar to, I always bring this up with Bo Brack, who's going to join us here in a second from PHNX. All they talk about right now is Marvin Harrison Jr. If Caleb Williams was in here, that would be the same situation in Chicago. It'd be all about Rome Odunze. So to see him take that step forward, those two things were really positive today. Now, the Caleb numbers are somewhat misleading because he did rack, similar to Dak, a lot of those yards came late. The Bears did have a late score. They were down a couple scores. They gave themselves sort of a chance to get back in it and make it a 1-possession game. So there was some garbage time numbers in it. There was also a Hail Mary right before halftime. This is another Bears specialty. Second time in like 8 years, I think it is, they've caught a Hail Mary at the 1-yard line, but not scored. So they've actually caught the Hail Mary, but short of the end zone. That's another thing that they love to do to their fan base. So there were some kind of garbage yards in there. That being said, there was also, a couple deep balls that I feel very strongly just have watched so much Caleb Williams. There's some of these deep balls that he's overthrowing right now that I just know within a month from now he's going to start hitting, because he's good at that, and he's eventually going to be good at that. So I still feel very confident about where this thing's headed with Caleb. I think we just live in this anxiety world right now, which is based on 30, almost 40, maybe more than that, years of failure on offense, that when you have this much doubt already about what's happening with the play calling and the offensive coordinator, that it's just like, no matter really what the numbers say or the progress that's happening on an individual basis, you're still going, come on, how is this still happening? And I think that's really what's kind of digging in at Bears fans today. Still, it's like a lack of trust in the coaching staff, if that makes sense.
100%. And obviously that connection between a head coach and play caller with the rookie quarterback is everything. And that's why kind of Broncos have some hope, because they do believe in Sean Payton and the Bo Nix connection. And so not having that, I can totally see that being frustrating.
And just to put a bow on this game, I'm sorry, do you have a thought on this game too?
I was just going to say, in a vacuum, I think that we kind of are in a microwave society when it comes to quarterback development. The expectation now is, because everyone sees these young guys come in and play well, is that everyone wants that, and it's just not realistic. And you are going to have guys that are going to take a little bit more time to develop and settle in and stuff. So it's actually kind of disappointing, to be honest, because we don't get to enjoy the development of players as much anymore and to see them progress. So, and when I look at Caleb Williams, I've watched a couple of games of his and things like that. You see him still holding on to the ball too long and stuff like that. It's like, yo, that's like yeah, he's gonna do that for a while until he finds some comfort. But I think you guys actually getting a better run game going would definitely be helpful for a young guy like him. Is that something that you're looking for you guys to open up a little bit more?
Well, and that goes back to the frustration. I think, Fran, you touched on this too. I mean, this was a Colts team that gave up 164 rushing yards to the Packers in the first quarter last week, and the Bears couldn't get the Bears really just looked. It's such a disappointment right now, and they were also involved in the Saquon Barkley sweepstakes. They, eventually, I think that just reached a number where they didn't feel comfortable going. They sort of settled on DeAndre Swift, who I'm actually interested, Fran, in your take on DeAndre Swift, because right now, to this point, it's been very disappointing. And I actually thought he looked great in training camp, but we're seeing once there's live bullets, his contact balance hasn't been very good. He tends to go down pretty easily. And I just don't know what's going on there, but there seems to be a disconnect in trying to get him going in the running game.
Yeah, I mean, coming in when he was in Detroit, I feel like he was such a feast or famine runner. And even when he was at Georgia, that was the same deal, right? Was that he had that ability. Yeah, maybe it would go 0 yards, but he could break that 40-yarder. He could break that 65-yarder. Well, with the Eagles last year, I thought that he was much more disciplined than I expected. And I was actually pretty impressed with his running style. But over the course of time, as the season went on, it's week 6, week 7. It's like, where are the yards that you are creating for yourself? And that was what was really missing from that offense a year ago. And honestly, even going back to Miles Sanders in the years before that, is that those guys could pick up what the offensive line and what the system had allowed those guys to get, but they weren't creating yards for themselves. And that's why they made the decision to go for Saquon Barkley. And then you get games like today, where Saquon, when you most need it, you don't have AJ Brown, Devontae Smith goes down. Here goes Saquon out the back door for 65 yards and a touchdown. That's the dimension that was not brought to this offense a year ago with DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, 100% makes sense. All right, well, we got to still cover the Cardinals here as we start to get to the end of this week's Sunday Huddle. Zach, we will let you go as we bring in Bo, but not your Bo, the other Bo, our Bo. But congrats on Bo Nix and to everybody at the NVR for a nice little Sunday for you guys.
Well, thank you guys. And it was awesome talking to all of you and enjoying this. And let's Bo, baby.
Yeah. You're a hater. Your nice little Sunday.
Let's Bo. There he is. We are bowing right now. Let's go, man. All right. As we bring in our guy, Bo Brack, who's been hard at work covering the Cardinals. And I hope you finally made it home from the stadium and everything. I know playing that later afternoon game. And a tough one for the Cardinals today, too. Tough matchup, obviously, with the Lions, but I did see your guys' predictions over there. I know there was mostly a level of confidence that the Cards could win this game. So what happened today?
Man, that's thanks for bringing that up. That we whiffed on our predictions. We were riding high after a 41-10 just shellacking of Sean McVay for the first time in the history of McVay taking over the Rams. Did the Cardinals get a win at home against them last week? So we were trying to parlay that into back-to-back dubs at home. And look, the Lions just came in, and they're just too talented of a team. And that was on full display. They're a couple years down the road in their own rebuild, and you saw the physicality especially in the trenches when you got Aiden Hutchinson, and then on the other side, Penei Sewell setting things up for their run game and then slowing down the Cardinals' run game, which I think was the biggest key in this one, and turning Kyler Murray and the Cardinals' offense into kind of a one-dimensional passing attack. So it was you were excited at what you saw from the Cardinals, defensively, because I don't think anybody anticipated them shutting out the Lions in the second half. But at the same time, it was disappointing for Kyler Murray and crew to only put up 3 points when they went into the locker room down 2 scores.
Yeah, I did not see a ton of this game, obviously, because we were in our post-game show while you guys were playing. But it just sort of looking over the box score and then watching the highlights I did, it sort of felt similar as what was going on with the Bears today, where the solid running back on the other side of the ball that got to 100 yards, kind of had a nice day, David Montgomery for the Lions, and then Marvin Harrison maybe quite didn't have the efficiency when you looked at the catches versus the targets, but he still did catch another touchdown, similar to what Rome Odunze did today. So, and then you just didn't quite produce enough offense that left it sort of as a frustrating Sunday. That's how I was kind of piecing this thing together. It's like it seemed relatively similar.
Yeah, you hit the nail on it. I mean, there was no fourth down -12 rush in this one, but it was James Conner just could not get going at any point. Like, I think his longest rush was 7 yards for the Cardinals. That actually set up in a solid spot, like second and a couple of yards, and Kyler Murray tried to force the issue with Marvin Harrison Jr., and it turned out to be a pick. And it was just the second half was, punts, going for it on fourth down. It was just a disaster offensive display. But, for a defense that nobody had any expectations for to come out and pitch a shutout, I think that the Cardinals were encouraged by it. I think there's a lot of confidence from this offense through the first 2 weeks going into this week that they're going to be able to put points up on that side of the football. And, just unfortunately, the Lions were able to kind of take out that run game, and it just made things that much tougher for Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. to kind of get on the same page on the fly. And you saw a lot of kind of misconnections. And I think down the road, guys, like they are going to connect on some of those hits. Like Marv was very close to hauling in a bunch of those targets that fell incomplete from Kyler Murray. And, talking to Kyler Murray in the post-game press conference, normally he's, too talking after a loss, but he said that. I mean, he felt encouraged after this because we're once again with the 2023 playoff team. They're one possession away from either tying or winning this football game.
Yeah, Bo, your connection's a little choppy there, so we're gonna. I don't know if you want to try to reconnect or something like that, but Fran or Aisha, if you have any thoughts on this game, obviously from the NFC North perspective, the Lions eking out another win. I don't know if the start of their 2024 season has been too impressive, but they had that tough loss last week, but they do bounce back with this win in Arizona to go to 2-1. But it's not like they were lighting up the scoreboard today either against that Cardinals team.
Yeah, they're confusing. And I say the Lions are confusing not in a bad way, but like they are a couple years removed from kind of doing this soft rebuild, I guess you want to say. I just keep expecting for them to come out better every year. And I'm still, like, even this year, to y'all's point, like, I'm not seeing that step forward that I thought that they would take in that way to be, like, one of the consistently, elite teams or whatever the case may be, because they have the talent. I mean, they have immense talent on that side of the ball. But it's funny that he mentioned the physicality of the Lions, because one thing about the Lions, I noticed last year, baby, after you play them, the injury report going to be long. It's going to be real long. It's going to be like a CVS receipt because they coming at kneecaps and ankles. You understand me? So just hearing him talk about how physical they are, yeah, they can take it to you quick. And that, Aiden Hutchinson, they follow him as a leader. He's definitely become one of the better edges in the game. You see with edges, man, like they're either this or they're that, right? A lot of them are speed rushers, but this guy's going to play the run. He's going to set the tone. And so they are kind of hard to beat in that regard. But they'll probably be normal midway through the season. They'll probably look better midway through the season, but I'm just expecting for them to come out and start faster, and I just haven't seen it from them yet either.
Yeah, Hutchinson had a sack again in this game. He's had sacks every single week so far this year, so he's been proven to be consistently productive. So I think when you look at what they've gotten out of him, they've got to be happy. I mean, the big thing that they've got to be excited about too is that, Detroit went 2 for 2 in the red zone, and that's been an issue for them so far this season. The big thing is just they haven't been able to get their playmakers all going at once. I know Laporta got carted off in this game, but Jameson Williams nearly shut out by this Cardinals defense. Bo, I'd be interested to get your take just on this defense overall. I'm pretty familiar with Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rallis coming here or coming over there from Philadelphia, but I know a lot of not household names on that defense. Who are some names that you feel have kind of played out of their skis a little bit so far through 3 weeks?
Well, the pass rush, it's not a household name worthy of pass rushers with Dennis Gardeck and Zaven Collins, but, they've been good in the run. And as far as Dennis Gardeck, he's done a good job in getting after the quarterback. And I apologize, it looks like the internet's kind of crapping again. But, they've done a good job coming off the edge. And Gannon did a good job in Philly doing that. I don't think he's got nearly as in depth as far as defensive line play. They really upgraded that position through free agency. They wanted Darius Robinson to come out of Mizzou. Unfortunately, he's on IR to start, should be able to come back after next week. But, they just don't have the defensive front seven to compete, especially against that stout offensive line that Detroit offers. And in the red zone, it was tough to compete with. You didn't see a whole lot of you saw a bunch of chunk yardage in the run game. They even got creative in a couple plays. But the Cardinals I think that they will have some people by the end of the year emerge. Like, I like a lot of the players that they spent day 2 draft picks in the defensive secondary. And of course, about Budda Baker, Jalen Thompson. So, and then Kazir White coming over last year and off season has just been kind of a steady, calming voice, but also, plays with the violence that JG loves on the defensive side of the football. So, it's kind of that's a group that I think is going to continue to be a year behind, but if they can have people emerge as building blocks, I think they'll take that as a win this season.
Well, it feels like a must-win for the Cardinals next week. The schedule has been pretty tough here, and I guess 1 and 2 going Bills, Rams, Lions isn't the end of the world, but you got the Commanders coming to Arizona next week. You probably want to have that one, especially because the 49ers and Packers loom after that. Just to close out the show, guys, I want to give everyone just a chance for final thoughts on any other games, anything else that caught your eye today. I'll start in the NFC North. Just being close to the Bears, but the Packers to be able to go 2-1 here with Malik Willis taking over the last couple weeks and looking pretty damn good today. That looks like a scary football team. And then the Vikings, they got to be up there as the biggest shocker of the NFL so far. 3-0. Sam Darnold looking good. They win 34-7 over the Houston Texans. I mean, I could have been sold on the Vikings winning at home today. The Texans falling back to earth a little bit. And maybe they eked out sort of an upset, but this was a complete blowout, which was shocking today. So the NFC North looking tougher and tougher by the week.
Yeah, what Brian Flores
I'll go.
is doing.
Go ahead, Aisha.
I was just gonna comment on what Brian Flores is doing with that defense down there.
No.
Yeah. Can y'all name me 2 players from the Vikings defense?
I don't know that I can anymore, to be honest with you right now.
Yo, I mean, because they didn't clean house, but they have been in a place where a lot of that older roster is gone. So for them to be performing to this extent, and they're not just going up against people that can't play. I mean, these are offenses that move the ball around efficiently and can really toss that thing around and run the ball as well. And these guys are shutting it down. I agree with you. They're very surprising to me, but that's Sam Darnold for you. So
those Vikings defenders are getting so old that Mike Zimmer's bringing them all down to Dallas to play on that.
You
defense.
trying to fight? It's 11:37. You trying to push me, huh?
It's all tater tots. No, I think the big one for me, and I'll stay in the NFC East. I think look at Malik Neighbors. He's got to be the front runner for the Rookie of the Year at this point. He gets 78 yards and a couple touchdowns. The big thing is this guy's doing it in multiple ways. They're putting him all over the field, inside, outside. We know he can win with speed. He can win over the top. He can win with the ball in his hands. He showed today that he can win up above the rim in those contested catch situations. So I'll just get really quick in and out. Malik Neighbors, early front runner, offensive Rookie of the Year.
Wow.
Yeah, Isha, you got anything else around the league?
No.
Okay,
Uh-uh.
fair
I
enough.
thought I did, but no. We got to see Malik Neighbors next week. I will say that Daniel Jones seems like he's finding a connection with him. I mean, I don't know if he's had a true number one since he's been in the league. So that might be, his success might be tied to Malik Neighbors actually getting going and them doing some things offensively, getting him moved around. I'll take a look at the film this week because we got to see him on Thursday.
Bo, how about you?
I mean, Seattle 3-0. I know they haven't played anybody. They took advantage of no Tua and then Skylar Thompson getting banged up today. But to win the games that they should win, I think that's important for this team that continues to build a nice young roster. And you got a new offensive play caller there in Seattle, and looks like it's going well for Geno Smith and crew. So I think Seattle with the Cardinals losing today, and of course, what's going on in Los Angeles and San Francisco with the injury bug. Seattle going 3-0. That's important in a really tough division.
And I'll just close out by shouting out Bears legend Andy Dalton for throwing for 319 yards today, and the Panthers just another. I don't know if it was as much of a shocker because I don't know if anyone's taking the Raiders that seriously, but to go into Las Vegas and win the way they did, Dave Canales made a nice move. Had a little sense of urgency. You never know what's going to happen in Carolina. You could be fired any given day when Dave Tepper's your owner. So, make the quarterback switch and get a victory, and you can at least, sleep pretty well tonight, I guess. That was certainly one of the bigger results today. And, of course, the Rams coming back on the 49ers. I was able to catch the end of that game kind of right as I got home, and that was pretty shocking because it looked like the 49ers had that one all wrapped up. And, hey, good coaching there in LA. It'll always give you a chance. And coming off that loss to the Cardinals last week, the 49ers, surprising that they're at 1-2 at this point through 3 weeks. Yes, Aisha.
Can they withstand this? Do you think the 49ers, I wanted to ask you guys, that's my around the football league thing. Can they withstand the San Francisco 49ers? Do you think they have the depth to withstand what they're going through offensively with the injury bug?
They can't afford really to lose any more of these guys across the scope of this offense. So as long as they can stay relatively healthy from this point out, I think they'll be able to stay afloat. But the big thing too is just getting that defense, up to snuff as well. I mean, that's going to be something that they're going to continue to try to do both up front and on the back end, because both sides of that are having issues right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, good lesson, I think, for everybody involved in this and anybody still watching this late on a Sunday night as we wrap up our all NFL Sunday huddle, is that it is a long NFL season. And, it comes down to a war of attrition. And as long as guys are going to come back, I'd rather be banged up in September than in December. So, a lot can change between now and by the time the season's over. And, for teams like the Cardinals and for the Bears too, with Caleb Williams and Roman Dunze, it can still be improvement, but certainly understand the leveling of anxiety with NFL fan bases. That's why we're here late on Sunday night. I don't know if it's a therapy session or pep talk or whatever it is. But we kind of take a step back at the perspectives of the other fan bases out there that might be going through some feelings too. That's certainly how this works, and that's why it's the greatest league that we have and the best sport that we have. So appreciate everybody being here tonight. Thank you to all you guys too for being here as well. Shout out to Zach Stevens, Frank Duffy, Aisha Morrison, Bo Brack, and our producer, Emma Clark. We have just such an awesome team behind the scenes working here at All City. Love getting everybody together on Sunday night to kind of bring the whole team together and wrap up the day. And we all work really, really hard on Sundays too. So we will close the show up and get a little sleep before we get right back at it tomorrow. I know we all got shows and more things to break down with our team. So good night to everybody. Thanks to everybody watching. And just remember, we'll be right back here too. Week 4 recap, Sunday Huddle edition, when the Sunday night football game ends next week. Make sure you're tuning in here. Appreciate you all being here. We'll see you next week.
We all silly like the mayor.